Hello, friends. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining my live stream. Today, I am going to talk about a topic that we've kind of briefly talked about in some of our live streams over the past few weeks. What does it mean to be able to speak a language? And how can you know that you do, in fact, speak a language or that you're able to speak a language? And I wanted to talk about this because we've had some conversations with people. A few conversations have been sparked when I've said things like, I speak 5 languages. And someone called me out on that. They're like, no, you don't speak 5 languages. You speak 2 languages and you're learning 3, which struck me as kind of bizarre, especially for someone who doesn't know me or hasn't heard me speak other languages. And I mean, this is not just a one-time thing. This has happened to me multiple times, and I've heard it happening to other people. And it's just like an inner conversation that you might want to have with yourself. So it's not necessarily something that you're just going to get called out on, but something that you might struggle with internally. When someone asks you, how many languages do you speak? It might be difficult to say something like that, especially for when many of us grow up in, well, not me, but many of you have grown up in bilingual cultures or trilingual cultures. You know, if you grow up in India or in, different places that don't have one solid language that's just spoken by everyone, like we have here in Wisconsin. So it might be difficult to come up with a number, or do you even have to come up with a number? That's what we're going to talk about today. News from the other side says, very bizarre. I start speaking the moment I arrive in a new country, and that is usually when I start studying and learning the language as well. Hey, it's everyone has their own definition and opinion on this, and I just want to talk and have a little discussion. See if we're all on the same page or if we can get on the same page. So before I go in any further, please feel free to leave comments in the comment section here during this live stream. That's the entire point of a live stream, right? Because I could just record a video of myself speaking and having a monologue. But the point of the live stream is I get to interact with you guys in real time. So before we get started, I just want to hear from you guys. Where are you from? What language do you speak, and what language are you learning? It's just a conversation starter, but I'm interested in hearing from everyone. I see we have 11 people on right now. So, if you feel comfortable leaving a comment and interacting, that's what these live streams are for. Anyways, let's get into the topic of why or how well do you need to be able to speak a language in order to say that you speak it. Okay. And this was also partially inspired by a Twitter thread that I created last week. Okay. And I actually linked the tweet below, so you can check that out in the description of this video if you want to read it and read the comments and replies and stuff. All right. And it says, at what point do you feel comfortable saying you speak a given language? Is it based on your level, as in B1, B2, C1, etc., or on something else? All right. And I received a lot of replies to this. So we'll go through and read some of the ones that I thought were interesting. And we also will hear from people in the comment section. So, Kevin Young says, I sometimes find that sometimes that I have to defend that I am a polyglot. I get it a lot in the States. Yeah, and there's no agreed upon definition of polyglot either, right? Some people say you have to speak at least 5 languages to be a polyglot. Some people say you need to be able to speak at least 3, or even some people say just 2 is a polyglot. Really, I don't obsess over labels as much as most people. What does it mean to be a polyglot? I don't know. We all generally understand what it means. We like learning languages. You speak multiple languages, right? All right, Lucas Santos says, you're really lucky at news. The majority of us would never live in a country who speaks our target language. It's true. All right, I'm worried I'll never be able to speak without translating in my head first. Yes, that's a common fear. Just takes time, takes practice. I think we should make a distinction between being able to speak in a language and being able to converse in one. So what distinction do you make there? So Suriname says, as I regularly speak both Malay and Chinese in my daily life, but I don't think I can speak either of them. Or should I say use? That's a good question. And it's funny that so many people, it sounds to me like a lot of people are really hard on themselves. And they say, oh, I don't speak French. I don't speak Chinese. I don't speak Malay. I don't speak English. I'm learning, and I can have a conversation, and I can order food in this language, and I can have a text message and, email back and forth in this language, but I don't speak it. Okay. But it's interesting to me that you say, I regularly speak both Malay and Chinese, but I don't think I can speak either of them. Well, what does it mean to speak Malay or speak Chinese if you don't speak that language? And I'm not pointing you out, Sriram. This is a common thing that I hear a lot of people saying, and it's confusing to me, because to me it seems like if I am able to speak a language to someone or with someone, if I'm able to talk in the language, then I speak that language. And somehow I think I'm kind of a minority here, because a lot of people I've spoken to seem to have a certain opinion that you have to be at a certain level of fluency, and not like a low fluency level, but you have to be like fairly fluent in a language before you're allowed to say, I speak this language. Okay. I'm a Latin teacher myself, and when my students ask me at what point they really know a language, I tell them that it's when you can understand a joke and understand song lyrics. That indicates your brain is processing it in a non-native way. So for you, the ability to speak a language is when you can understand some subtext of what people are saying. That's not on the surface of the words. Am I understanding your point correctly? Okay, I'm from Chile. I speak Spanish and English, and I'm learning Esperanto and Mapudungun. I don't know how to say it. I'm not familiar with that language. I'm learning Toki Pona too, but I don't think I want to learn to speak it. I just use it in writing. Very good. Toki Mapudungun. I'm not familiar with that language, but Toki Pona and Esperanto, I think, are really interesting choices, and I support that. All right. It means like my landlord who speaks English a lot, but can't speak it. I'm just confused by what it means to be able to speak English, but not speak it. And again, you're not alone in this. Lots of people say, oh, I speak Spanish all the time, but I don't actually think I can speak Spanish yet. I'm confused what that means. Maybe you can say, I speak my interlanguage Spanish, but I don't speak native level Spanish. I don't know. Oh, hi, Hillary. Thanks for joining. He says, in my honest opinion, there's an assumption that to speak a language means that you're fluent in it. And the word fluent means you won't need to look up any words. I think people set the bar too high, to be honest. Yeah, I agree. And I'm not telling people how they need to define fluency or how they need to define the ability to speak a language. I am interested in hearing different people's opinions. And I also am kind of low-key hoping I can convince some people to change their definition of fluency. Often the definition of fluency that I hear is that the ability to speak with ease. Okay. It has nothing to do with being able to speak like a native speaker or getting confused for a native speaker or having no accent, right? Or knowing every word. Someone the other day asked me if I know every word in Spanish. And I was like, do you know every word in English? Like, what kind of a question is that? There's no language that I speak that I know every word in, right? I think a lot of time, especially monolinguals or people who have never spent significant time learning a language, a lot of people just don't understand what learning a language is like and what process you go through. I think speaking is being able to communicate enough, and this is from Keeks. I think speaking is being able to communicate enough to get by day to day, while fluency is being able to convey nuance like emotion, make complex connections, etc. Okay, so he has a slightly more, or she, I'm sorry, I shouldn't assume. Keeks has a slightly what would you say, a more attainable bar for what it means to speak a language, right? I like that. Let me say this. Okay, I speak Thai poorly. Okay, when I speak Thai, I make a lot of mistakes. When I speak Thai, often I mess up my tones. People don't quite understand what I mean. When I have a conversation in Thai, I don't always, sometimes I get lost. Okay, so I speak Thai poorly. But wouldn't you agree that speaking Thai poorly is a form of speaking Thai? I don't speak Thai well. I don't mean to give off that impression when I say I speak Thai. But you could say something along the lines of, I speak Thai every Wednesday when I'm taking my Thai lesson, right? That's something that people, I don't think anyone would object to me saying that that phrase. I speak Thai for no more than 2 hours a week. So like that's a pretty unobjectionable phrase. But it seems to imply that I do indeed speak Thai. And my Thai might only be at an A2 level, something along those lines. I mean, maybe a B1, A2 to B1, something like that. It's not very good. It's not a high level of Thai, but I do speak it. In my opinion, that's the way I see things. Jason says, "Hi, Fingtam. I'm an English speaker learning Turkish. I like watching your videos. Thanks for the great content. Motivates me to keep going." Thanks, Jason. I appreciate it. By the way, for those who are watching, if you haven't yet, I would appreciate giving me a like, because that just helps me keep growing my channel and expanding. Gets my videos a little bit more airtime in YouTube's algorithm. All right. Mauricio says, "I still speak perfect Spanish, though." Oh, wait, I'm missing something here. Okay. You think my accent will ever go away? No, I don't. You'll always have an accent. You can reduce your accent. You can get very close to native speaker, but especially if you learned as an adult, it's extremely unlikely you'll ever eliminate your accent. And that's okay, right? Cuando yo hablo español, creo que hablo bastante bien el español, pero también creo que suena un poco gringo, ¿verdad? Soy de los Estados Unidos y creo que me entienda, ¿verdad? Me entiendes cuando hablo español, pero hago errores y también tengo un acento. I have an accent when I speak Spanish, right? I speak well, I think, in my opinion. Most people tell me I speak well. And on occasion, I get people telling me, "Hey, I thought you were a native speaker." You said, like, sometimes I have other native speakers of Spanish tell me they thought I was a native of Spanish. I've had people say that in French before, too. But if you listen to me for a significant amount of time, you'll start to hear me say things that native speakers just don't say, and pronounce certain letters, especially when I'm tired, right? Then more mistakes start to come out. I have to search longer for words. My tongue doesn't move quite as nimbly as it would for a native speaker. and that's normal. That's natural. All right. I think you will be able to say you speak a language when you could speak with natives and they understand you. You wouldn't say a baby don't speak a language, despite if he isn't fluent yet, right? Do you? Yeah, that's a good way of putting it with it. When you can have a conversation with a native speaker, you definitely are speaking the language, in my opinion. All right. If they understand you and you're speaking to them, then you're speaking, right? That's a good way of putting it. For me, it's more that for French and German, I can use the language, but I speak incredibly slowly, and it takes a lot of time to say things in these languages. So I can't speak French and German, in my opinion. But wouldn't you say I speak French slowly? Or when I speak German, it comes out slowly? Like, couldn't you say that? And if you say I speak German slowly, then that sort of implies I speak German. In fact, it doesn't even imply it. It entails that. There's no way to say I speak German slowly, but I don't speak German. That's the confusion that I get. And maybe I'm hung up on a linguistic technicality here. Maybe people use the word speak in various different ways. And I have for example, let me read you some of the responses that I got to this tweet that I sent out last week. All right. And again, for those who are just joining, this tweet says, at what point do you feel comfortable saying you speak a given language? Is it based on your level, B1, B2, C1, etc., or on something else? And here's one of the responses I got. And I think this is a valid point. Rosie's Ramblings says, I usually classify like I speak some Spanish or I speak a little Chinese. Sorry, I just added in Chinese there. I speak some, or I speak little, or I speak, or I'm sorry, or some other qualifier. But to just say I speak a language, I would want to be at least B2. Okay. So Rosie's Ramblings wants to be B2 before they say I speak a language. All right. And I'm not saying there's a right or wrong answer, right? So that's just their opinion, and that's fine. But that excludes being able to speak at the B1 level. All right. So let me read you what it means to be able to speak as a B1 person. Okay. If you have a B1 level in Spanish, you can understand the main points of clear standard input on familiar matters regularly encountered in work, school, leisure, etc. You can deal with most situations likely to arise while traveling in an area where the language is spoken. You can produce simple connected text on topics that are familiar or of personal interest. You can describe experiences and events, dreams, hopes, and ambitions, and briefly give reasons and explanations for opinions and plans. If you're able to do all those things, that sounds an awful lot like speaking to me. Right? So it's strange to me for someone to say, oh, you're just at B1. You don't speak Spanish yet. Okay. But again, what this person is saying is maybe at that point you say, I speak a little Spanish or I speak some Spanish. Right? If you're at a B1 level. And that's fine. That's more of a personal preference. Right? I can't tell them that they're wrong or right. Especially when it's something just very personal like that. All right. Bill White says, you have prompted me to amend my statement. Jokes and songs would be fluency. The ability to meaningfully communicate any thoughts at all is speaking. You're right. Hey, that's good. I like sparking dialogue and getting people to talk. And yeah, I think what he says is right. The ability to communicate any thought at all is speaking, right? If I say, eu quiero aprender falar portugués, I believe I just said, I want to learn to speak Portuguese, right? It's the only phrase I know in Portuguese. Did I speak Portuguese just there? Yes, I think that indeed is actually speaking Portuguese. It's not to say that I go around telling people I speak Portuguese, though. So it's a difficult thing to wrap your mind around. Okay. I often don't tell people, I wouldn't brag about being able to speak Greek, right? I can say, ego thelo nafao kati. Ego thelo nafao kati. I want to eat something, right? Or ene tesseris. It's 4:00, right? Tiora ene. What time is it? I'm somewhere. I'm like an A level something. I can say phrases in Greek. I can speak some Greek. I can speak some things in Greek. It does seem like it would be misleading for me to go about talking and saying I speak Greek. And the reason, let's see, someone else left a comment on on this tweet. It said, sorry, I got so many responses to this tweet. Someone brought up a good point. You don't want to say, I speak language X, and then get caught up where someone calls you out and starts speaking language X to you, and then you feel like an idiot because you're like, oh, what I meant by speak language X is I'm at a A1 level and I can say, hello, how are you? Right? So you don't want to get caught up in that. But here, let me read you another one. This is from Jack Daddy Chronicles. I'm B1 in Spanish, and I still don't feel like I can officially say I speak it. Again, it goes back to what is B1? If you read through all of the descriptions of what it means to have a B1 threshold, that sounds very much like speaking a language. You can describe experiences and events, dreams, hopes, and ambitions, and briefly give reasons and explanations for opinions and plans. You can do that, but you can't speak the language. How do you express and communicate your reasons for your plans, hopes, wishes, and dreams without speaking? That's odd to me. Here, someone says, Yeet2J says, to be honest, if you can go into that country and hold fluent conversations with native speakers, I'd say you can speak the language. And I agree. Now, to be clear, saying you can have a conversation with a fluent native speaker is not the same as saying I am fluent, right? I can sort of uphold my end of the conversation and they understand me and I understand more or less what they're saying, right? And they rattle off a whole bunch of things and then I kind of respond to say yes and, and give a little bit of input with lots of grammar mistakes and things like that. You're upholding your end of a conversation with a native speaker. So is that speaking? Again, it sounds like speaking to me. I'm not sure everyone would agree with me, and that's okay. Sorry, I know I'm skipping a lot of questions here. Maria says, I finally got your live. You once told me that you need to find a way to learn phrases instead of words. Do you have any book recommendations for Spanish? I heard about the 700 phrases ones. I don't. The only book I usually ever recommend in Spanish is Benny Lewis's Language Hacking Spanish, but that's for beginners, up to maybe a A1 level, possibly A2. All right. I think the idea that you need to be perfect to be able to speak a language could also be a result of the monolingual mindset. Yeah. Monolinguals, people who only speak one language, don't know what it's like to learn a language. They have a lot of misconceptions about what it means to be able to speak a language. 5KY Dragon says, I just started learning Russian and your videos are really helpful. Awesome. I'm glad I can help. All right. Some linguists say you know the 1,000 most commonly used words, you could speak 80% of the words. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, you do 20% of the work and you get 80% of the results, right? And that's right here and it's right on the cover of Benny Lewis's book, right? You'll learn all of the things that are going to be most common to learn, like the center core, and that's most of the things you'll ever need to say, right? And then there's like diminishing returns as you learn more and more and more and more. And obviously you want to keep learning. But once you get that solid center, that core base of your language down, you're able to say most things. And you're able to get to that point a lot faster than you are able to get to like the C2 level, you know. Okay, news from the other side says that was Portuñol. I mean, hey, I don't speak Portuguese. I don't claim to speak Portuguese. I guess I claimed to speak a phrase in Portuguese there, but you know what I meant. All right, when I see teens who say they can speak like 8 to 12 languages, that really makes me feel bad about myself. Yeah, here's the other thing. A lot of times, very often, when you hear about these hyper polyglots, especially on YouTube, you know, you think of like Moses McCormick, maybe Richard Simcott, you know, some of the really crazy people who speak tons of language, Benny Lewis, Steve Kaufman. Very often when they tell you I speak 20 languages, what that means is like I speak 4 languages well and, you know, 10 languages moderately, and I can have very basic conversations in 10 more. You know, Moses McCormick speaks like 50 languages. Do you think he's able to have intelligent conversations in all of them? No. In like probably 20 of the languages he speaks, he's able to say like, hello, how are you? 2 beers, please. You know, so don't get discouraged when you hear about people who speak tons of languages. Okay. For me, myself, you know, I say I speak about 5 languages. Okay. I speak English natively. No one can argue that I speak English. I speak Spanish as my second language. All right. And I don't know. I've probably fluctuated. I think I spoke Spanish better when I lived in El Salvador, but to this day, I still creo que la mayoría de ustedes que hablan español, bueno, no sé exactamente, pero creo que hablo bien. Si ustedes de acuerdo, no sé. Yo creo que hablo bastante bien. Puedo comunicar con quien quiera y hablo español. Okay, I speak Spanish, I think, pretty well still, even though you know it's been a few years since I lived in a Spanish-speaking country, and I don't speak it that much anymore. But I was at like probably a C1 or C2 level, and you know I like to speak Spanish with anyone that I can. So that's Spanish. French, I would say I never probably reached a C level, but you know, probably a B2. And I minored in French. And I, you know, I've spent a summer in Paris and I've gone to Quebec quite a few times, and probably over the years, I've probably forgotten some and I've gotten rusty, but I can still hold conversations in French. I just did it yesterday. And, you know, it's tough when you come back to a language after a while and you can't remember all the words and you start to accidentally add in other words from another language. But, you know, like I said, just yesterday, I had a conversation for about half an hour in French with an italki tutor. And, you know, we're able to talk about whatever we wanted to talk about. And I call that speaking. Okay. Thai. Well, Esperanto is probably my 3rd best language, 4th best language. I have a language channel dedicated entirely to Esperanto. Okay, and I make a lot of mistakes. I often will have to stop and think about a word and say, shoot, I don't know how to say this. Right. And then I come up with a different way of communicating what I wanted to say. All right. And very often people will come and leave me lots of corrections and they say, hey, but you're learning. Okay. But I still say that's speaking. If I'm able to have a YouTube channel entirely in Esperanto, and I can talk nonstop for, 5, 10, 15-minute videos in Esperanto, in poor Esperanto, granted, I still say that's speaking. Thai. My Thai is pretty rusty. Okay. Not only is it rusty, but it was never actually a well-oiled machine. Okay. I did live in Thailand for about a year, almost a year. I took a lot of classes. I did a lot of italki tutoring. I read a lot of children's books in Thai. And by the end, I was definitely able to order food in Thai. I was able to tell a taxi driver where I want to go. I was able to have basic conversations with my friends in Thai about simple things like what I did today, what I'm going to do this weekend, what I enjoy doing, what my job is. Common things that I would have to talk about a lot. I learned how to say those things. And still, to this day, I occasionally will do, I'll do italki tutoring in Thai, have a conversation for half an hour with an italki tutor entirely in Thai, or like 99% in Thai. I also go to a Thai restaurant once in a while and, say a little bit of stuff in Thai to them. My Thai is bad. It's not good Thai. I don't claim to speak well. พูดไทยได้แต่ไม่ค่อยดีเท่าไหร่เรียนภาษาไทยอยากเรียนเก่งมากแต่ตอนนี้มาอยู่ที่ประเทศไทยและพูดไม่เก่งครับ I can say stuff in Thai, right? So I call that speaking. If that's not speaking, I don't know what that is. Let's see. Someone left me a comment here in Thai, and now I can't see where it is. Oh, here we go. So at the ka. Oh, it's from language. They just said I'm interested in the Thai language, and then they say Sawadee ka. Sawadee ka. Right. That's called speaking. All right. Greek is the most recent language that I started learning. And I've been using Pimsleur, italki. No, I haven't used italki yet. I use Pimsleur, Duolingo, and Link for learning Greek. And Pimsleur teaches you to speak. Like, that's entirely what Pimsleur is for, speaking and listening. I would say I'm probably not even at an A1 level in Greek, honestly, or maybe A1 tops. Actually, let me take a look here. When you're at an A1 level, you can understand and use familiar everyday expressions and very basic phrases aimed at the satisfaction of needs of a concrete type. Yeah, so I would say that's probably along the lines of like, please, thank you, how are you, may I have X? Okay, so I can do that. They can introduce themselves and others and ask and answer questions about your personal details, such as where they live, people they know, and things they have. I can more or less do that. You can interact in a simple way, provided the other person talks slowly and clearly and is prepared to help. Okay, so I'm probably at an A1 level in Thai, or in Greek. I meant probably like an A2 level in Thai. Probably not B1 yet. But in Greek, I would say I'm probably A1. Okay. I don't go around telling people I can speak Greek, even though technically speaking, I guess I do, right? I speak Greek on occasion, right? But I can't really converse in Greek not in any real sense. Whereas in Thai, I can force a conversation. I can muddle my way through a conversation. In order to do that in Greek, it would be pretty strained and very limited. So I don't go about saying that. Anyways, I know I'm missing a lot of questions here. I apologize for that. Okay, Lucas Santos says, that was Portuñol, man. Like when Argentine go to Brazil and try to buy a beer. How do you deal with negativity from the language learning community, e.g. comparing yourself with others and learners and people telling you you're not? Man, that's a good question. It's like I said, though, you're never going to be perfect. Don't expect to be perfect, and don't let that be your goal. Have fun. Most people that I talk to in the language learning community are very encouraging, whether you speak a little or a lot. I don't run into a lot of people that are negative. So most of the comparisons and negativity come from within. So I guess I would just say try to avoid that. I think B2 is too high to say you can speak the language. I'm B2 in English, and I can have a clear conversation with anyone who's speaking the language. I often even dream in English, etc. That's from Marie. Yeah, absolutely. I think B2 is way too high. Like I said, I'm probably at A2 level, maybe close to a B1 in Thai. And I say I speak Thai. I don't go around bragging about it. I don't speak Thai well. I speak it poorly, but I speak it. In Spanish, this is from Sky Dragon. In Spanish class, I struggled on our assignments, but when I went to Spain, I did great. Had conversations, bargained. I was able to communicate my food allergies as well. Yeah, and that's a big part of my problem with classes, with language classes, especially in America. I think maybe in Europe they do it a little bit better than we do, but in America, language classes are kind of crap. Generally, I can't make that sweeping generalization because I'm sure there's a lot of language teachers who do very well. And I myself am a language teacher. I don't teach in a classroom anymore, but I used to. It's hard because each student is so individual, and it is hard to develop a curriculum that's actually going to teach students to be able to communicate effectively in a language, right? It's easy to come up with a language course where you just grade them on, did you memorize vocabulary words? Did you memorize how the grammar works? Can you pass the test? A, B, C, D, choose the right test answer. Unfortunately, that does not translate into being able to speak fluently. So it's a shame that language classes have to be like that. Sky Dragon, no, I just read his. Do you believe in all this person that say to be polyglot? I believe most people online who say I'm a polyglot actually are. And we have different definitions of what it means to be a polyglot. And a lot of people, it's kind of subjective. How well do you need to speak all of your languages in order to be a polyglot? I don't know. I don't really have answers to those. And I don't care that much. It's just a label. Really, it's just a word. Officially, I reached C1 on both French and German. This is from AR. I learned them in school, and I successfully completed tests for this. Yet, I don't think I can actually do what C1 means. C1 is pretty high. You can understand a wide range of demanding longer clauses and recognize implicit meaning. You can express ideas fluently and spontaneously without much obvious searching for expressions. You can use language flexibly and effectively for social, academic, and professional purposes. You can produce clear, well-structured, detailed text on complex subjects, showing controlled use of language, of organizational patterns, connectors, and cohesive devices. Yeah. All right. Vicente says, I think I feel comfortable saying I speak X when I don't have to think before speaking, and I can express words and phrases I don't yet know by using other words. Yeah, and a big part of this is not when do you technically speak a language. It's more when do you feel comfortable speaking a language. And I guess by those standards, I'm a little bit more lax with people saying, I don't speak a language until B1 or something. B2 is pretty high. I think you can say you speak a language before you reach B2. All right, how many words is necessary to be able to understand the language, in your opinion? I don't know, 5? You know, if you understand ¿Cómo está usted? Well, that's 3 words. If you understand those words, then you understand the language, right? So I don't know what that means. It's, you know, there's just no point. A lot of people have the idea that there's people who don't speak the language and people who speak the language, right? But it's not like that. It's like, it's a very slow progression and you'll never know when you've arrived. It's like, what's the difference between green and yellow, right? Like we know there's a difference between yellow and green, okay? But no one is under the delusion that everything falls into one of these 2 colors. Like, what about chartreuse? You know, there's just some word, there's just some colors that are just in between yellow and green. Okay, and there's some people who are just simply in between those who speak Spanish and those who don't speak Spanish. Okay, it's not an easy thing to determine. Do you think visual dictionaries are useful? Oops, where was I? I just lost my spot. Do you think visual dictionaries are useful? Learning words with images and trying to make sentences with every word I'm learning, etc. I think there is a place for that. I honestly have no problem with just word dictionaries. Like, a lot of people think Drops is so good because it doesn't use your native language. I find it to be very limiting, though. So instead of Drops, I think Drops is okay. I really like Memrise and Anki. I prefer those, actually. Okay. Is Esperanto helping you learn other languages? Yes. All right. Sounds like you're A2 in Thai. Yeah, I mean, พูดไทยได้แต่อยากพูดไทยเก่งมากวันนี้พูดไม่เก่งแต่เรียนทุกอาทิตย์และตอนนี้ไม่พูดไม่เก่ง You know, I can say stuff in Thai. It's not good, and I make a lot of mistakes, but I can say stuff in it. Okay. What things do you do to reduce your accent? I wonder if there's resources out there that can help work on your accent. Yeah, there is. One of the main things that has helped me a lot is Pimsleur. Okay, you listen to the native speakers speak, and then you try to repeat after them as closely as you can. You try to imitate the tone of their voice. I try to imitate the pitch of their voice. You imitate everything as closely as you can, and it'll sound strange because their language uses different sounds than your language. But after using it a lot for a long time, I find it to be very helpful in reducing your accent and sounding more natural in your target language. Do you speak any Finnish? No, I don't. Okay, news from the other side said, you speak Thai better than me, so I would say that is speaking. Hey, I'll take that. I appreciate it. Okay, Marie, dream in a language. Is it possible? Wait. I don't think I speak in a language in my dreams. Okay. What resources do you use after you finish Pimsleur and after you're at A2 max B1? How do you advance from that point? I use Link a lot. Link is really helpful because it's scalable. You never run out of Link, right? You can run out of Pimsleur. You can run out of Mango languages. You can run out of Duolingo, but Link is evergreen, okay? Also, conversation practices. So hello talk is excellent. italki, very good. Don't use italki for lessons per se. Use it for conversation practice. You can usually get cheaper lessons that way anyways, when you're looking for just a conversation partner, not a teacher. But hello talk is free. So I recommend that too. Hello talk, italki, link. Those are what I go for. And just at that point, once you've finished Pimsleur, if you've gone through, depends what language you're learning. If you go through 5 courses in Pimsleur, you're at a point where you can understand a lot. You can still watch like more beginner level stuff on YouTube or listen to podcasts. Also listening to music a lot and memorizing the words and lyrics for songs. That's very helpful to me. Okay. A lot of people talking about dreaming in Spanish or English. That's good. Hello, how do you overcome procrastination? I try to find things that I can fit into my daily life. So like Pimsleur, I listen to while I'm driving the car, or while I'm mowing the lawn, or while I'm doing like cleaning. I often do Pimsleur while I'm doing yoga. And I find that very often I don't make time to do yoga during the day. But I find that if I choose to do Pimsleur while doing yoga, then I can do yoga for half an hour. And I feel like my yoga isn't suffering and my Pimsleur time isn't suffering, because both of those two things are so easy to do at the same time. So that's been really helpful. Also, try to find things like Memrise or Duolingo that you can squeeze into like 5 minutes when you have downtime sitting in the doctor's office or something. Set little reminders in your phone. It's all helpful. Find something that's enjoyable. You don't need to procrastinate when it's enjoyable, right? Like if you're going to read a novel and link and you're getting really interested in this novel, it's helpful. Okay. So thanks to everyone who's watched this video. I know I have a few comments down here that I haven't responded to yet. News from the other side says, I used Pimsleur for Mandarin a while, but it didn't end up moving there. I can say still that stuff on the first 2 CDs, so people often think I know more Mandarin than I actually do. Very good series. Yeah. And different people have different opinions about Pimsleur, right? It's not for everyone. It is for me. I can tell you that. I really like Pimsleur for the beginning levels of a language, and I eventually graduate from it. Right? It's not a forever thing. It's the first 6 months of learning language kind of thing. Okay. Devono Knabo says, I use grammar plus Anki plus talking to real people. Is that good practice? Yes, it is. That's exactly what I would expect. And Hillary says, I followed your advice and found an italki person to talk to, and we are talking about Marvel movies, something I love, and it's not expensive. It kills procrastination dead. Yes, I love to hear that, right? Because you're not wasting time. You're actually learning to communicate about the things that you probably want to be able to communicate, right? When it comes time to have a conversation in Spanish, those are the conversations you want to have about things that interest you. So I love to hear that. Slow and steady wins the race. I would suggest getting a pen pal in like Spain. Talking with people is really helpful. Yeah, and there's different ways of doing that online. You can use Interpals. You can use Hello Talk, Tandem. You can find someone on Reddit. You can find someone right here on this channel. If you just leave a message, say, hey, if anyone's interested in practicing Spanish with me, we can make a connection there. So anyways, thanks to all those who joined and watched this live stream. I can't talk anymore. You watched my live stream. Anyways, thanks to all those who joined, and I'll see you guys next week. Peace out.